Changes on medications and Medicare. Benefits are being cut. Access is getting harder. Need help? Call 646-494-6403 or go on.
You doing okay? Is this your cup?
Yes.
Is that what you're looking for?
No. Really? That's just for the links.
That's just.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Did he start talking?
What's going on?
The voice of the people, KABF, 88.3 FM. The vision of KABF is to inform, empower, and engage our listening audience to take action that serves the immediate needs and common good of our diverse communities. We create a platform for diverse cultures and groups to share their music, interests, and concerns. We cover news and information that impacts directly into the lives of represented members of the community. We build groups and individuals often overlooked by the broader community. And we offer public affairs and education programs to address the health and well-being of the community.
Thank you for listening to KABF 88.3 FM, the voice of the people. This is Ingrid, with Fortuna's Radio. Every week, volunteers like me bring you more than 100 hours of music and talk that you won't hear anywhere else. The generosity of listeners like you has helped KABF stay on the air since 1984, and we appreciate your support. By making a donation now, you can help us to continue bringing to focus diverse voices, diverse music, and diverse cultures from the community. Call us now at 501-433-0088 or visit us at www.kabf.org to support community radio. Thank you for your support.
Groups that focus on the environment and small farms are raising money. The U.S. Department of Agriculture will pause and review funding for systems that produce natural gas and manure at industrial livestock operations. The move comes just a week after a coalition filed a petition asking that factory farms be ineligible for funding for anaerobic digesters under the Rural Energy for America program. EPA database lists one anaerobic digester in Arkansas for Springdale. Higher than Food and Water Watch says factory farm biogas digesters produce energy that carry high environmental costs.
And I encourage factory farms to get bigger. Increases overall pollution loads that the rural community has to deal with. We are adding industrial gas production on top of these already very large and pre-industrialized facilities.
In a statement, the Renewable Natural Gas Coalition said digesters reduce methane emissions from manure management, improve water enable production
Te llamo.
of natural gas. That's reliability. Dell says the limited program funds can be better spent on projects like solar arrays on small farms, which don't produce enough manure to merit a multi-million-dollar digester.
The natural gas production that is yet another market lever against small-scale local farming and in favor of multinational big ag corporations having further consolidation in our ag system.
There's also a prototype digester at the Arkansas Agricultural Experimental Station. Transforms waste from fertilizer to captures methane. For Arkansas News Connection, I'm Mark Richardson. I'm your host educators at publicnewsservice.org.
Support for KABF 88.3 FM comes from listeners and community partners. If you're a business owner or planning an event and would like information on how it can be announced on KABF, contact our office at 501-372-6119. That's 501-372-6119.
The way we treat animals affects all of us. Cruelty overseas led to a pandemic, killing 1 million people. I'm aspiring back to make a better world for animals and people by visiting AmericanHealing.org and signing our movement for animals.
Do y'all hear it? Do y'all hear it? It's plugged in right here.
Is it playing?
Oh, you know what? Let me see. No, it's not playing right now. Do I need to play it right now?
Mm-hmm.
But do you hear anything? Yes, huh? Am I supposed to be hearing it do that? Because it seems like we just got it all in here. We coming in hot this morning with the London African Gospel Choir singing Paul Simon's Graceland, and we'll tell you why we chose it in just a minute. But thank y'all so much for joining us for for Community Voices right here at KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people. I am your host, the Reverend Doctor. You can call me Denise, and in studio live, y'all, live. You know, sometimes we can't get them. Live is your co-host, the Toney Orr. Greet us, Tony.
Hey, good morning, everyone. It is weird. Been 3 weeks since I've been in the studio. I was, it's just great to be able to get out and move around. So thank you for tuning in. I hope everybody is safe, stay warm, and stay protected during this winter storm. So thanks for tuning in this morning.
We also have a special guest in the house. I'm going to let him introduce himself and then we'll greet y'all and then we'll get into it in just a minute. But special guest in the house, who we got?
I'm Adam Fogleman. I'm a candidate running for Pulaski County Treasurer, and I'm grateful to be with y'all this morning.
All right. So it's Adam, Denise, and Tony in the studio this morning. And I want to make sure that we always let you know how grateful we are that you are with us. If it were not for you, we would not be alive right here at the corner of what's that? Main and 21st, 2101 South Main Street right here in Little Rock. And so we are really grateful for how you show up for us. We are grateful for the many ways that you show up for us. You show up for us by calling in. You show up for us by being loyal listeners. You show up for us for participating in Pledge Drive. You show up for us by sending me all these videos and articles and podcasts and documentaries you want me to pay attention to. You always showing up. And for that, we are grateful. And we don't ever want you to think that we take that for granted. I do want to remind you that Community Voices is the radio talk show that centers Blackness in the context of the human story. It centers Blackness in the context of the human story. So all humans are part of the story. We just gonna focus a little bit more on the Black folks. That's what we do right here. And I want to make sure that everybody's clear on that. The phone lines will absolutely be open at 501-433-0088. Phone lines will be open at 501-433-0088. But first, I've got some announcements that I really need to make. I think it's a lot of them too, y'all. Just give me a minute. Okay, so this is from the Cowles Roberts Library, Preserving the Voices of Blackville, Arkansas, on Wednesday, February 4th at 12 p.m. It's in the main library and it is free. Join us for February's Legacies and Lunch in Cowles Main Library's Dara Center on the 5th floor. Thanks to the Cowles Foundation, we are now offering free lunch on a first-come, first-served basis to in-person attendees. Join co-editors Wally G. Vaughn and Carolyn Ann Butler Cooley in conversation with Arkansas Democrat Gazette Sunday Style editor Helene Williams for an illuminating conversation about their book, Blackville, Arkansas, Fashioned by a Former Slave. That is happening on February 4th at noon at the Cowles Roberts Library. Let's see what else we got. Okay. I also want to let you know, those of you who are keeping up with the news, it's not just Don Lemon, but all 4 journalists who were arrested for covering the news about ICE were Black. Their names are Don Lemon, Georgia Fort, Jamel Lydell Lundy, and Traherne Jean Cruz. I want you to know that as well. I also have a announcement about in solidarity with our Palestinian friends. We have a message for you from them. It's an opportunity for you to show up in solidarity to watch this film. Let me get it for you. I want to make sure I get the information. Yep, here we go, right here. We hope that we are doing the screening on February 7th at 7 p.m. It's the screening of The Voice of Hind Rajab. It's on February 7th, 2026 at 7 p.m. at the Cal's Ron Robinson Theater. And so the library is doing it big for us, making sure that we are keeping up with what we need to do, standing in solidarity with the Palestinian friends that we have, and also making sure that you go and listen to the conversation about Blackville. That is what we need to do. And before we actually get started, there's one more thing. We need to hold space for one of our ancestors. Oh, wait, also, there's a plan for everyone to watch the Michelle Obama documentary Becoming on Netflix this weekend. So it becomes the #1 movie on Netflix. Even if you've seen it, just let it play. There's a plan for everyone to watch the Michelle Obama documentary Becoming on Netflix this weekend. So it becomes the #1 movie on Netflix. So that is also out there for you to consider. All of this is for you to consider. And then finally, those of you who are well aware of alumni from Philander Smith University, then we will ask you and the rest of our audience to join us. Philander Smith University joins with all who mourn the loss of Mrs. Hazel Bullock. She was from 1941. She's a distinguished alumna whose life and legacy stand as sterling examples of service, scholarship, and a stalwart commitment to education. Born in Conway, Arkansas, Mrs. Bullock graduated from Paul Laurence Dunbar High School in Little Rock before earning her Bachelor of Arts degree in English from Philander Smith College in 1941. She later completed a master's degree in education from the University of Arkansas. Over an exemplary 47-year career, she served students across Arkansas, shaping generations through her work in secondary and higher education. And so we're going to pause for just a moment so that we can honor our ancestor, our Black intellectual, our pioneer as a woman, all of those things, Mrs. Bullock, Hazel Bullock. Okay, thank y'all. Okay, now let's get into it. Yes, we've got Adam in the house. And so first of all, those of you who listen to me on a regular basis, I know y'all heard Graceland and was like, what? Where'd she get that song from? Yes, I do want to make sure that you know this about me if you do not know. So since this is a space that centers Black folks, no matter what song you send to me, whoever it is, because some of y'all send me songs all the time, I want to make sure that I can find somebody Black who covers the story, who covers the song. If I can't, then I'll play it by the original white person. I don't have a problem doing that. But if I can find somebody who is non-white that also sings the cover to the song, that's important for me. Why? Because it allows us to bring them into the conversation as well. So this was actually Adam's song. I said, hey, Adam, you got a song that motivates you, inspires you? Like, send it to me. So this is Adam's song. So first, Adam, because when I tell you I had a little bit of a hard time with this one, tell me why you chose Graceland.
So I grew up in East Arkansas, right up. Let's see if I'm on. Can you?
Yeah. Can you hear? Say something, Adam.
Check.
Yeah.
Okay. So I grew up in East Arkansas, right outside of Memphis. We're going to check the mic and make sure I'm on.
You're on over here.
Let's talk.
Okay.
Just talk because I need to be able to hear you, see if it's on.
So growing up in East Arkansas, you've heard the stories of what it's like in the Arkansas and Mississippi Delta. And I think the lessons that I left with, even though it's still home to me, is that there is opportunity everywhere. And the story that Paul Simon found inspiration from, he was in South Africa playing with African musicians, inspired by their beats. And there he had this phrase going to Graceland in his head. He couldn't get it out. And he thought he was going to replace it in the song. It ended up inspiring him to leave his home in New Orleans with his son, who's 9 years old. That's the story that he's telling, driving through the Mississippi Delta on the way. And I think the message is that everywhere we are, there is opportunity. There is opportunity to do better. There's opportunity to be better. And that's why it inspires me.
Okay. Tony, were you listening to the song? What did you think? Did you have any kind of feeling, any thoughts? You didn't have to, but I'm just wondering. Oh, let me just give you some housekeeping, Adam. So your audience is the phone. So your audience is watching you through the phone. I know it's hard to, to not look at the person who's talking to you, but and I'm probably going to ask some questions that I already know the answer to, but that's, again, you're not talking to me.
Right.
You're talking to all of those who are listening. And we are a global streaming platform. So just remember that so you won't think that this is a conversation about the two of us. So those two things, your audience is on the phone and your audience is not Denise. It is everyone who is listening from all across the world. So
Yeah, I've heard the song before, and I appreciate Adam giving background with that with Paul Simon. It- there's another song that he did that connects with Graceland called The River, and he has these musicians from South Africa, and they're going through and they're talking about this river. And when you talk about Graceland and going back to what you were saying, Adam, when you find opportunity, we know that in this land, in this country, opportunities are limited or sometimes non-existent for Black people or people of color. And, so just listen to the story, trying to find those opportunities and trying to see those opportunities and try to capture those opportunities. Sometimes it does not happen for all people.
yeah, so what I was listening, I was trying my best to understand the story, and that's one of the things that I love about art. Art, no matter who you are, you're gonna walk away with your own understanding, and all understandings that you have are right, because no one can tell you that what you're thinking and what you're feeling is not right. And so when you are talking about opportunities, I didn't see it like that, so I'm glad that you all brought it in. But I was trying to think about where would Graceland be for me? I know that Paul Simon is saying Graceland is in Memphis, Tennessee. That's where they're going. But for me, I was like, okay, especially if you are able, if anybody can ever remember to look up the London African Gospel Choir singing this song, they're doing a move. When they get to Graceland, they're doing this move from their hand. They have one hand, it's like they're clapping their hands together, and then their other hand, the one hand is in front of them, the other hand they clap with it, and then they reach to the sky. It's like they say, look, here's Graceland. And so then we talk about, it says where we will all be received. So watching them and listening to the words and trying to figure it out for me what it meant, I felt like they were saying that Graceland was heaven. That one of these days, all of us are going to be received in that heavenly, however you believe heaven, whatever heaven looks like for you, in the sky. But when I think about my own faith, I don't feel like heaven is somewhere else. Heaven is right here. We're supposed to be having heaven on earth. And so what are we doing to make sure that heaven right here is on earth for all of us to experience? Because all of us should be able to live the abundant life right now. We shouldn't have to wait to hide in the whole Sunday thing. So I was thinking about that. And so then to also think about the fact that Paul Simon does go over to work with the South Africans. That's absolutely true. But he goes over at a time when the United Nations, they've declared this boycott because of apartheid. And so they're saying, well, we don't want anybody doing anything. We don't want anything happening because we need to make a statement against apartheid. And this is the time that Paul Simon decides, oh no, I'm going to go over here and we're going to do a whole concert, or we're going to work on this music. And then it should be okay because I'm playing the South African, I'm paying them triple scale, and I'm paying them I'm splitting the royalties with them for every song that they work on together. And so I was like, really, Paul Simon, you picked this time to go over there? And so there was an interview with one of the South Africans, and he was saying that he was really grateful for Paul Simon to be there because what they want, because they're living under the regime, the apartheid, they're living through this, they don't have access to the opportunities that Toney and Adam are talking about. They don't have access to that. And so they believed that because Paul Simon was so big over here in the United States, if he comes over and basically co-signs our music, then the world will say, oh yes, let's listen to these African singers because Paul Simon is working with them. So if Paul Simon is working with them, then they must be somebody. And so he was grateful for Paul Simon's presence. And so for me, when I'm thinking about that, it's like, that's what happens to us all the time, right? Because again, in this world, we don't center anything other than whiteness. And so when we think about how the systems of white inhumanity, the systems of whiteness always prop each other up to say this is the standard, and then the others of us find ourselves now trying to live through that gaze. Okay, well, what would my life be like if I had one of them with me? And I think that for me, that's the whole goal. The whole goal is to say, no, 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 no. Yes, we need the Paul Simons to open the door for access. Absolutely. That's how he used his privilege. And yes, we need that. But we also need to be doing that in a way that allows everybody's voice to be heard, regardless of the white gaze, regardless of that. So what I would have wished that Paul Simon would have done was exactly what he did in terms of going over there to the South Africans, honoring, celebrating their music, absolutely giving them a platform, and then going to the background and letting them be up front. What if he had done that? And so I was thinking about that when I was listening to this song, Graceland. That's what I thought about heaven on earth. So how do we work to make that happen? And I also want to ground the conversation in the EJI tidbit for today. On February 3rd in 1948, Rosa Lee Ingram, a Black woman, and two of her children, Wallace, who was 17, and Sammy Lee, who was 14, were convicted by an all-white jury in a one-day trial in Ellaville, Georgia. The three family members were sentenced to death by electric chair for killing an armed white man in self-defense after he violently assaulted and threatened them. On November 4th, 1947, a white landowner named John Stratford, armed with a shotgun and a pocket knife, attacked Miss Ingram, a widow who worked as a sharecropper on his farm near Ellaville. Testimony later revealed that Mr. Stratford hit Miss Ingram in the head with the butt of his rifle while threatening to sexually assault and shoot her. And her sons heard her crying and was like, wait a minute. And they came to her defense. And yeah, they whooped up on that white man, and then they were the ones who got sent to the electric chair. So if we're going to talk about opportunities, and if we're going to talk about where Graceland could possibly be, could it possibly be this heaven? If it's possible for us to bring that heaven on earth and realize and manifest it here, what would we have to do to make that happen? And we continue even in this day to dare Black folks to raise up and protect yourselves. They were defending their mama, and they didn't end up getting, they were not killed in the electric chair. They were not executed. They were not, but they had their sentences commuted. And so now they were living life they had a charge, and they had life in prison. So they spent 10 years in prison because they dared to defend themselves against a white man who was armed and hitting their mama. And so if we're going to have opportunities, if we're going to make heaven here on earth, that means all of us are going to have to realize there's a different way of looking at this thing. We got to figure out, where are we complicit? How can we stop being complicit? And what can we do to help other people see themselves in this space? And so I'm so glad that Adam is here now, because he's running for office as a white man up in here, right? So what do you have to say, Adam, about making sure that in your role as Pulaski treasurer, if, I'm claiming it for you, claiming it, in your role, that you can offer up the opportunities and the access and open the doors for people who might, and I don't know if your job there could lift that. I don't even know. So you tell me about it.
So I'm going to start. I'm going to mirror a little bit of what you said. One of my favorite quotes is, there's no such thing as an unsacred place. There are only sacred places and desecrated places. That's not a reflection on the place. It's a reflection on the people who occupy it. And so it says everything. If we live in a place that we're not being stewards of, that's a reflection on us and not the people who preceded us. And so it's on us to raise those stories up. So thank you for sharing what you have, because we've got to tell those stories and tell them over and over again. If we don't tell them, they can be lost to time, and we certainly don't want that. It's true where we sit right now in this neighborhood. There's an opportunity to tell and elevate those stories, because they exist. It's just a matter of digging them out of the papers and digging them out of the history books and making sure that we elevate those. So as Pulaski County Treasurer, how do I open the door to access? Well, the treasurer's role is twofold in Pulaski County. One, it's the collector of taxes, and other, it's the manager of the county's treasury. So on the collection side, most tax collections support public education, period. In Arkansas, I think it's somewhere close to 70% in Pulaski County of collected taxes support public education. And so we've got to make certain that not only are we collecting the taxes, but we meet people where they are, and that it's easy to pay those taxes, and that there are opportunities. Once upon a time, you could go into the revenue office. You could go through a drive-through bank and pay your taxes there. today, right now, your opportunity is online, which not everybody has access to, and going downtown. And we need to open the doors wide again so that we meet the people where they are, that they have an opportunity to make it as easy as possible to pay their taxes. Second, on the treasury management side, I am a big believer in transparency, and I've been on Arkansas's FOIA task force advising the legislature on how to make sure that the public books stay open. I have, in my role as county attorney for the last 10 years, I've implemented Pulaski County's FOIA portal that the sheriff and the county judge and the county clerk use. I'll expand that to the treasurer's office. And also, there's no reason today, from the comfort of your home, you can sit in your underwear if you want to, from the comfort of your home, you should be able to access the county's expenses and see how every dollar has been spent and who received it, how much. We should have an online checkbook, and that's a day one. That's a day one priority for me.
Oh, caller, you're live on the air, KBF 88.3 FM. Thanks for calling.
Good morning to you all and to your listeners. I'm not familiar with this dog, but if I ask a question, what is the best state that you like to live in?
What's the best what?
People would say Arkansas, a state in the United States.
Okay, gotcha.
But the viewpoint I have, the best state to live in is the state of your mind, the way you think, the way you vibrate, the way you move. Now, this is what we call Black History Month. I look at my people, how they move. I see them with their job. I see them with their police job. I see them with their different jobs. And they have that arrogance the way they treat other people. Because they don't know how many people this goes for black people and white people who have sacrificed a lot for them to get these jobs and things. And then when they get them, they get all arrogant and big-headed and preaching like crap. It's been happening to me over and over and over again. We need to rethink how we really deal with people, period. Thank you.
I appreciate that, caller.
Going back, excuse me, going back to the EJI and tidbit, and also we were talking about South Africa, and talk about Adam running for Pulaski County Treasurer. And when I connect the dots with that, the one thing that happened in the EJI tidbit was that there was somebody who was in charge. There was somebody who had the power and took away opportunities. There was that opportunity that you're attacking my mother and I'm coming to protect, but because I have this power, and then when you look at, me and Adam was talking about before we came on the air about the years that the current treasurer has been there. When you are in a place that long and you control that type of power, you take away opportunities for anybody else. And because it becomes this cycle, in reality, that's the system. See, the county treasurers is in a system where I keep getting this position, I keep being in this power, and as long as I'm in this power, I can control the opportunities of so many people. And you're right, if we don't start looking at how do we as humans, how do we stop and say, it's time to take that power away, whether it's through term limits, whether it's through voting, whatever it is, because as long as that power is still there, it's going to be oppressive. It's going to be, when you look at what's going on in our federal government, you have people who die in office. They've been there so long, they just die in office. That's a system, that's a power structure that has to be changed.
Well, there was another reason why I chose this particular EJI tidbit on the day that I knew Adam was coming, because because for me, and I think I've said this before, all roads lead to the ballot box. All roads lead to the ballot box, because the reason that Miss Ingram and Wallace and Sammy Lee were able to desecrate their bodies and their humanity, let's say that their humanity, the reason they were able to is because the judge was in on it, the sheriff was in on it, all of these people that we elect to office. I don't care if I have to say it a million times. We do not live in a democracy. We live in a republic. You are voting people in who are going to represent you. And the hope that we have, or the hope that we used to have, is that those people are the ones who are going to take into consideration who I am when they're making these decisions. Not just who I am as Arkansan, but who I am as a black person, who I am as a black woman, who I am as a black child, who I am as a black man, who I am as a brown person of Hispanic descent. Like all of that, like what are you doing to make sure that you are honoring all of the bodies when you're in your office? And so Adam, when you said that, you said, oh, I thank you for saying, telling that story, because we all need to keep telling the stories. I thought about this from Carol Ann Blow. Carol Ann Blow posted this on her Facebook page. It says, "Dear white politicians, do not go to black churches and tell them how much you hate racism. Go to white churches and tell them." And so I'm wondering for you, as a candidate who the world identifies as white, living in, especially in Arkansas, we're the only, Little Rock, we're the only blue city, right? And so then how are you considering that you will be in a position to bring in other stories as you do the work of being Pulaski treasurer if you're going to get hired? If you win.
Yeah, absolutely. So regardless of the duties of the office, every officer that we elect is an ambassador of the place and the people that are here. And as county attorney, my hands are sort of tied in some of the work that I can do. I've got to be responsive to the elected officials. I've got to do the work to advise them, and I can't represent and do legal work for anybody else. Not even fire districts that are in the unincorporated areas. So if you live outside the city limits in Pulaski County, you're probably getting fire protection from a volunteer fire department. Most of those fire departments are overtasked and under-resourced. That's just the truth of it. As county treasurer, one of the things that I will do, not want to do, that I will do, is to attend their meetings, to sit with them and to help formulate strategies long-term so that the services that are received in these communities that are often underserved is improved and is more stable. That affects quality of life. There is no better guide to childhood success long-term than I'm trying to think of the words now. It's not, it's
The adverse childhood experience.
Well, no, it's access. It's even a countervailing force against adverse childhood experiences. It's access to human capital. It's access to neighbors that have a variety of jobs and have a variety of backgrounds, because it opens doors to see, like Paul Simon in Graceland, what's possible, what the possibilities are as you drive through the Mississippi Delta. What I want to do as Pulaski County Treasurer is to tell those stories. Not everything that an officer does has to fit within the nice, tidy little box of what the obligations are. Because the officer can choose to elevate stories. The officer can choose to place their focus and priorities on making sure that fire districts and levee districts and sewer districts that are operating in outside the city limits are stable and well run and supported. So that's where my focus will be, in part, as Pulaski County Treasurer.
Caller, call me back. I didn't want to interrupt Adam, but call me back. The phone lines are absolutely. Call, you're live on the air, KABF 88.3. Thanks for calling.
Good morning, Sister Denise.
Good morning, Ezekiel.
Those on the web. And you get, hopefully you can hear me. I don't know.
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
I'll hang up and call back. And if you're able to hear me, let me know by saying that I'm going to turn my radio back on. I don't ever turn down that train call. And I'll call back and say what I have to say if you are able to hear me. Thank you.
So I sent you a text, Ezekiel. You said you were going to cut your radio back on. I sent you a text to let you know that we can hear you. So for anybody who's calling, I don't know if you all are having a similar problem as Ezekiel, but please just when you call, just talk. Just talk. We hear you. Just talk. So, Adam, okay, so I asked you the question about in that role of Pulaski County Treasurer, a Pulaski treasurer, but then I also want to know, just as like stepping outside of that role, as a man, as a call you live on the air, KBF. Thanks for calling.
Okay, I'm back, Denise. Good morning to all. I always hear about the blame, if you will, that goes to our gladiators, our modern day gladiators, athletes, sports, entertainment, et cetera, and also our thespians, court justices, are those who perform for the ruling class. A kangaroo court is just what it is, and that's the system that we are living under here in America anyway. I don't know about other places I've been there. I heard about it, just like I heard about South Africa in many years. Just getting to the point. I don't like to blame a lot of folks for the problems that continue to plague our community. I'd like for us to take some responsibility for ourselves. But to make a long story short, the gentleman that you have on now said he used to be, had some type of dealings with county attorney. And I just wanted to know if there's anything he knows about the situation in Wrightsville, Arkansas, where those taxpayers, citizens, don't ever get the benefit of their citizenship, if you will. And I don't know if it's an ongoing situation or if it's just something that occurs when we have certain people in office. But according to the lady that hosts the show coming on tomorrow, Matt Howell put in place years ago, he was a former senator who ran unopposed, who was like the toughest legislation in the state of Arkansas. But that's another story for another time. Put in place some type of measures that prevent the citizens, if you will, of Wrightsville to enjoy the benefits of taxation. And of course, that's like taxation without representation. As county attorney, do you know anything about that? And if so, will you elaborate on that? That's what I'd like to hear right now while you're on the air. You can go to church whenever you get ready, but that's Sunday. Today, Tuesday, let's see if we can't find something out about the situation at Wrightsville, which is the southeast part of Blackness County. And it is inhabited by mostly folks of slave descent, if you will, etc. So thank you for your time. Keep on telling the story. And if you will, elaborate on what I said.
Okay, so I asked Adam not to answer. I asked him not to answer, and I asked him on purpose not to answer because I want to stay with what we're talking about, which is the Pulaski treasurer, that part. But Adam said he is willing to come on the show anytime. So what I would like to do, Ezekiel, on your behalf, is to say, Adam, we need you to come back up here, hopefully next Tuesday, and respond to Ezekiel's question about Wrightsville, because it's a whole bunch of us want to know about Wrightsville. Are you willing to do that?
I'll come back anytime.
Okay, okay, so that's what we'll do. Ezekiel, he will answer you all the questions, he's going to answer them on the air for everybody. I just want to make sure we stay right here with the Pulaski treasurer, because that's the reason that he was invited today. Go ahead.
I've got a question for you.
Hold on just a minute.
Okay.
Calling you live on the air, KBF. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, Brother Colby. Now, I wanted to ask him, why do we have to pay taxes before we have driving privileges? And is there some kind of way to work out a plan where those that need to drive to go to work or whatever they might have to do might have some kind of even community service to be able to even drive a car or whatever? But that is one step before you get to the DMV, the driving place to give you license and all that. You have to show and prove that you have paid taxes. And who came up with that idea? Again, people love y'all.
I'm going to say, Adam, please don't answer that right now. We'll get into that another time. I want to stay right here asking questions about, because I just said all roads lead to the ballot. He's running for office. We need to know whether or not this is a person that we want to support. We can't do that if we asking him all these other questions about something else. He's going to come back on and talk about Wrightsville. Absolutely. He just committed to that. But right now, I'm trying to get y'all the information that y'all need to see whether or not you're going to vote for him.
So add my question to you. You mentioned earlier that almost 70% of the taxes that are collected here in Pulaski County go to education.
That's correct.
And so as county treasurer, I know there's with Pulaski County Special School District, I know there is some legal things going on there where they have to make all the schools equitable. But if 70% goes to education, as county treasurer, do you think you'll be able, or do you think you have a plan to where you need to make sure that the schools in Pulaski County are all being treated in an equal and a fair way? Do you think that as treasurer, you can use the office of treasurer to bring light to all the differences when it comes to, since we are paying this money for schools, and it's constantly talking about the schools are failing?
Caller, you're live on the air, KABF. Thanks for calling. Call me back, caller.
So to your question.
Hold on just a minute. Hold on just a minute.
All right.
Thanks for calling. You're listening to KABF at 8.3 FM. This is Community Voices.
Yeah.
Yes, we hear you. Okay, for those of you who have your radio on, let me make this announcement again. When you call in, please talk. Just talk. We can hear you. Fine. Just go ahead and talk. Okay, Adam, you're going to respond to, and this is about, I feel like, I feel like I still want to say, wait a minute.
I think it's close enough. So the role of the voters get to decide what the rate of taxes is on property. So one of your callers mentioned having to pay the tax on his car before he could go get his license. That's a function of state law. But the voters in each district are who get to decide the rate of taxation. Based on what usually it's the school board who will say we're going to ask for the millage rate to go up or down or to stay where it is. From there, that money gets collected by the treasurer's office. It's then managed and dispersed out to the school district for them to spend as the school board sees fit. Now, there is an opportunity to make certain that it's very, very public when the money is collected, how much is collected, when it's paid over to the school district, and also to work hand in glove with the school districts to make sure that they have the resources they need to lift them up, so to speak, and give them the platform. Because like I said, the treasurer's office, just like any other officer, you're an ambassador for the community. You've got a little bit of a bully pulpit. You can stand up, you can speak out, especially if you see something that needs to be addressed.
Well, that's my concern. When you say that, because you'll have the power and position to bring in the stories that include everyone when you're making the decisions about in the office of treasurer for Pulaski. My concern, though, is I asked you, can you bring the stories in? You were like, absolutely, I can do that. And you were talking as a candidate. So now I'm asking you as a person,
Sure.
Are you able to bring in any stories? Like, do you know any story? Are you in right relationship with people where you can hear these stories? I'm gonna tell you the reason why I asked, because I was at your fundraiser right here on the 21st Street. I don't remember when it was, but it wasn't too long ago. And your front man, Mike Orndorff, and everybody knows whatever I say, I already said it to the person. I got no problem. I will stand 10 toes down on it. He gets up and starts talking about praising George Washington, who had 204 slaves. And so I'm like, whoa, wait. And so for a person like me, I'm only talking about Denise right now. For a person like me, if that's your front man and that's what he says, I'm automatically thinking, then that's what you must be saying too, because why else would you have him as a front man? And so then that makes me say, can you really do the job? Not are you capable of doing the job based on the definition of the job, but are you capable of doing the job with the understanding that you're going to bring all of us into your work? And if you don't know the stories, how is that possible? So what would you say to that?
So I think he probably could have quoted W.E.B. Du Bois, talked about the exceptional 10% as opposed to the people that he cited. But those were decisions he made, and that's the approach that he took. And in my work in this neighborhood, in the Fedaway neighborhood, I've worked to elevate the name of Dr. Fedaway. I've worked to bring about the story of, or to tell the story, it's not mine, of William Laporte. There's an old storefront in our neighborhood. I was blessed enough to buy it a couple of years ago. The work hasn't begun just yet to bring life back to it, but William Laporte is the man who built it. William Laporte was a man born enslaved in 1828 in the Arkansas Post and came back to Arkansas after escaping his condition at the age of 14. He fled. He purchased the freedom of he purchased his own freedom through hard work. He purchased the freedom of his mom and his sister through that same hard work in the North. And then at the end of the Civil War in 1870, he comes back to Little Rock without much of anything, but through his endeavors, within 20 years, he was one of Little Rock's richest men. You mentioned Philander Smith earlier, one of its notable alumni. William Laporte was on the board that transitioned the Black Freedmen's Preachers College, and I can't call out the name right now, what it was before it was Philander Smith, but into Philander Smith. So he helped found it as a preacher's college and then helped recreate it as Philander Smith College in the 1890s, I believe. Those are the types of stories that we've got to elevate. Like the man lived a very full life. There's so much more to what he did and what he experienced in his time. But those are the types of stories that we've got to highlight and tell over and over again.
I'm interested. Not concerned. It struck me when you said, I need to bring this story. You said it's not my story. Okay, that's what you said. And so I'm wondering, what do you mean by that? When you say it's not your story, are you saying that it's not your story because you're a white person? Or are you saying it's not? Because the way I understand, well, let me just let you answer that first. When you say it's not my story.
It's his story. I'm not claiming ownership of another man's story.
Well, you can't.
That's right.
Right, you can't do that, right? But so my concern though is that I think that's what happens with a lot of people. It's like, because I've heard several people say, well, I'm not Black, so I don't understand. I don't, because that's not me. And when we talk about this show being centered we center Blackness in the context of the human story. The human story is all of our stories, like your answers and my answers. We all up in there together with this thing, even if it is something as ugly as the chattel enslavement. But it is your story because you are human in this world, and we share that. And so that's why I was wondering, like, because I do think also in the work that I do, I've heard people who are identified or are identified as white say things like, well, I didn't want to say anything because I feel like I can't, because how can I say something? Because it's not my experience. And so I want to charge all of us to think about that. We are all, this story belongs to all of us. It's ours, and everybody needs to be telling all of the stories, because if you don't, who will?
If you see something, say something.
If you see something, say something. Toney, when you get ready to say something, you raise up.
Just listening to the conversation between you two, and you're right. I think that's where it becomes so difficult for people. It's difficult for people to look at the totality of the human existence, the totality of the human story, because at some point in time, we all intersect as humans in each one of our stories, or most of our stories. And when you can get to that point where you can be a part of the story, and then you can understand the story, then it should move you to do better, or to change, or to try to do something to enhance, how can we make this story better? Going back to what we were talking about before we came on the air. And, one of the things we said, when you look at someone's, and you look at that story, this treasure has been there for 20 years. And then you have to ask the question, in year 1 to year 20, what is different? What has changed? What is better? And you have to look at it like that, because then in year 20, you can look and say, you know what? There has to be a change in the story. There has to be, we got to create another chapter to this story, because this story isn't benefiting the human existence, us as humans. So now we have to figure out a way. And like you said, Denise, it all goes to the ballot box. The ballot box changes the story. It changes the narrative. And I think that's something we have to understand.
Well, but the only way that the story is going to change is when you are listening to the story, you're looking at the story, you're reading the story. One of the things that we have to do is we have to find ourselves in the story. And the reason why some people don't want to tell the story, don't want to know the story, don't want to hear the story, because you would have to necessarily find yourself as the oppressor. You would necessarily have to find yourself as the one who is desecrating bodies. You would have to, because that's the role that you are playing in the story. Now, there are other characters in the story. There are characters that are being oppressed. They're the oppressors and then the oppressed. There are characters who are misusing and abusing power. And there are also characters who are opening doors for access. So where are you in the story? And until you can tell yourself the truth about where you are in the story, it's impossible to change it. And so that becomes the critical piece right now for us to say, hey, whatever story, you listening to the story that he told, the story that I told about Miss Ingram and her sons, the story he told about Mr. Laporte, where are you? And you say, well, I wasn't even here. Well, where were your ancestors? Answer that, because that blood is still in you. And it affects all of us because it's the human story. So I want to charge us to do that. When you're listening to the story, find yourself in it. Adam, we got about 2 minutes. I want to make sure that you have some time to say anything else you wanted to say, or give, I don't know what you want to do. Tell us about your platform. I don't know.
So first, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to come and speak with both of y'all and the listeners who are out there. The Treasurer's Office has duties that are pretty well contained. But like I said, I want to be an ambassador for the place that we live. I want to lift us up and use the talents that I've developed over the last 15 years in my professional career of finding ways to do more with what we have where we are. Whether it's Pulaski County's efforts to go solar and save money without spending any additional tax revenue, or developing properties and bringing life back to our communities, and with focus on affordable housing. There are opportunities, there are endless opportunities to do more with what we have, and it's just a matter of seizing those opportunities.
Toney, do you have something to say? We got that 3 minutes. Call it. Oh, we got about 3 minutes. Call, if you can say it in 1 minute, call back.
No, the only thing I have to say is going back to what you said, Denise, and what I said a minute ago about all roads.
Hold on just a minute. Caller, you're live on the air, KABF. Thanks for calling. Please cut your radio down. Cut your radio down. Yes, you're on KABF. Hello? I thought that was you. Hey.
Yeah, I wanted to comment real quick about what you were saying about the county and transparency. And one thing we want to look at when there's no transparency or anything that makes sense is the special improvement district. There's a guy named Adam King that is on most of those districts, and he also owns a company called Improvement Districts, which means that if there's a line item in the treasurer's office to Improvement District, it's not going to the district, it's going to his company, and that is not legal. And he is making decisions throughout all of your black communities, volunteer fire departments, and what have you. And they are creating these special improvement districts without authority and of no benefit to the community. And I'll go with that. Bye.
Okay. Now that was Pat Rogers Ward. She has a show on Wednesdays, every Wednesday from 9 to 10, Arkansas Talks. And that's the show that Ezekiel referenced when he said, hey, I heard it on the show, we want to talk about this. And so thank you, Pat Ward, for calling in and saying what you just said, but also reminding us to say, yes, shout out to you for making sure that you lifted up on the air the Wrightsville situation. And so now we've got Adam coming back to address the Wrightsville situation, and we're going to get him back on as soon as possible. So I told you, Adam, everybody wants to know about this Wrightsville situation. And so thank you so much for calling and reminding us. Y'all listen, we are out of time. We out of time. Thank you so much for joining us for the work for Community Voices right here live on KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people. I am going to leave you because your girl Lola, she right outside the door. Your girl Lola, she is ready for 2 hours of jazz. So you don't want to touch your dial. But I'm going to leave you with a song that reminds me of Ezekiel. He called in, and I want to make sure that I leave this song. Leave you all with this song to get her started. She always starts with the ladies. So here comes Gloria Lynn singing I'm Glad There Is You. We'll see y'all next time.
Some